Hi, my name is Molly Isaacs McLeod, president of Gifted Unlimited. I have the pleasure of being here with Dr. Joanne Foster, who is going to share some coping strategies and tips and tricks for us going forward into the school year. How are you, Joanne?
I'm great. Thanks, Molly. Pleasure to be here.
I'm so glad that you're here. And of course, by the time everyone sees this, we'll be halfway through the first semester, more or less. So I guess this will be continuation of school year wherever you happen to find yourself schooling in October. Anything you want to say before we get started? I know we have some wonderful questions coming up, and I'm excited to hear your answers.
Thanks. I'll try and speak as quickly as I can. I have a lot of information I'd like to share with everybody. So whenever you're ready, I am as well.
Excellent. And just a quick note, a copy of the slides will be available on the Gifted Unlimited website after the conference. So feel free to reach out to us. All right, number one question, underlying concerns. What are parents of gifted learners most concerned about in relation to their kids' motivation?
Well, there are many things that parents are actually concerned about in relation to motivation, especially now, given the circumstances of COVID-19. But I think perhaps the most important one is that we want our children to develop skills of will. In other words, volition and desire to do things, to be productive. And those skills involve many different things, including learning how to avoid distractions, whether it's people, things, or whatever happens to occur on a given day. Monitoring goals is another skill, learning to differentiate between short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. Exercising self-control and self-correcting when going off track are two more skills of will that children have to actually put effort towards in order to be able to achieve them. Learning to sequence activities and prioritize is another one. And finally, I think valuing effort, understanding that nothing happens without a certain amount of effort. Molly, I've put together some of the information on slides. If you don't mind popping along to the slide that's there. I think the first slide has got different pictures of my various books where I
a lot wonderful books. Your newest one being ABCs, and then your parent and teen pair for procrastinators, Bust Your Butts and Not Now, Maybe Later. Being Smart About Gifted Education, and of course Beyond Intelligence, which is a wonderful book too. So
yeah, that one's a Canadian publication.
I love that cover. It's inspiring.
Thanks. If you pop to the next slide, though, we can see the points that I just mentioned, and there they are: avoiding distractions, making sure that children monitor their goals, strengthen self-control, self-correcting, sequencing activities, and emphasizing effort. And all of these slides, Molly, I'm giving to you to share with people who are participating in this conference. And if they can email you, perhaps you can just send that out to them, and they'll have the full slide deck from today's presentation as well. The slides themselves are just point-based because I'm explaining a lot about the different points as I go along, but certainly these are good reference points for people.
There's so much content, absolutely. So you're ready for the next question?
Absolutely.
Okay, so signs. What does lack of motivation really look like?
Okay, so I'm going to give you about 18 different points that, again, talking very quickly, but just to let you know that motivation is not just a one-shot issue. It's actually an issue that covers a lot more. So the first has to do with fear of success or fear of failure. So kids who don't want to do too much because they're afraid they're going to get a whole lot more stuff laid on them, or fear of failure, which may have them sensing that, you know, I don't want to do something. I'm not motivated to do it because I may not do it well. Past experiences can interfere with children's desire to do things. Feelings that get in the way, their emotions, anger, disappointment, embarrassment, being upset about, for example, this whole COVID chaos, any of that kind of feelings piece of it can be problematic for kids when it comes to motivation. A lack of resilience is another issue. The idea that some kids just don't have that ability to pick themselves up and start again if something goes wrong. Personality, temperament, attitude can be problematic for some kids. Not being able to prioritize, not understanding what to do first can get kids muddled up and they may not even begin at all. Stress, obviously, anxiety, the sense that they get wrought up or overwhelmed. Children may not be motivated if there are poor incentives or expectations are not clear or they don't receive adequate reinforcement, whether that is in the shape of praise or reassurance or some positive feedback. Lack of motivation can come about when the demands are too excessive and kids can't cope with those. Distractions, which I mentioned earlier, of course. Poor adaptability. Some kids are just better at rolling with things and others have problems with it. And if you can't adapt, if you don't have that flexibility, then sometimes you're just not motivated. Right. A lot of kids have difficulty with lack of structure. So for many kids, a routine or a certain regimen is helpful. And I know that given the situation now, routines and the norm is not the norm. So this can be difficult for kids who may have problems getting themselves motivated. Boredom, perfectionism is another one whereby kids sometimes feel if I can't get it 100% perfect, I'm not going to do it at all. Weak time management or organizational skills can be at issue. So children who aren't quite sure how to regulate their time around certain tasks or activities or how to organize their materials or resources. Some children are afraid that there's risk involved and they don't know how to mitigate that risk. And so that could also be a problem with relation to motivation. There are lazy kids out there, so laziness is another. And finally, procrastination or task avoidance. And you'll see the two book titles there at the bottom, where again, I mean, I could speak to that an entire day and more. So Bust Your Butts is a book for kids to help them bust their butts. And Not Now, Maybe Later is a book for parents. Kids are certainly able to read it as well, but basically it's strategies to help parents to help children with procrastination issues.
Well, and they're both so helpful. I did want to ask just very quickly about the difficulty with lack of structure and boredom in sort of this COVID time where our usual touchstones for passage of time, beginning of summer, end of summer, weekends for people that don't have the same significance that they did before. Often mom and dad are working at home, children are attending school from home. So structure is important, but it's going to look different, and we should be generous with ourselves in that regard.
Yes, and I think we have to help children learn to deal with transitions and changes. And the way we model our own ability to deal with these kinds of situations is impactful. It enables children to get strategies and ideas and see how their parents and teachers experience these things and what sort of tips that they can pick up. I also write a lot about these kinds of issues in my articles and online, accessible on my website. Creativity Post is one place where I write a lot, and also First Time Parent Magazine. And again, if anybody goes to my site, which is joannefoster.ca, and hits the resource page, there's lots and lots of information there. And since you're asking specifically around the COVID-19 situation, a lot of the material that is specific to that has been marked with a red asterisk so that it's very easy to find.
Perfect. Oh, so it's so accessible. And you are one of our most prolific writers in that regard. You do an awful lot of articles that are quick but informative reads. So that's a good tip. So not to lose track of our time,
right.
What about practical strategies? How can parents help children become more motivated? Do you have some key tips in that regard?
Okay, so I think I just have a little thing popping up here that says my internet connection is unstable. So I'm not sure people actually heard the question, which was how can parents help children become more motivated? Um, I'm going to give you a few top tips, and I'm just going to go through them really quickly. Two really important factors are matching a child's tasks to their ability. So making sure that something is both challenging and manageable, and that the learning opportunities should actually be such that they can do them. They have to be relevant, they have to be meaningful to the child, and they need to be sure that there's some reason for them to have to do the task. You want to make sure that you consider the value of the task. Children won't be motivated if there's no value to it. That it's interesting, that it's appropriate to the child's age level and maturity, to their skill level, that there's going to be a sense of wanting to do it, ambition. There's something that inclines them towards wanting to complete this particular task or activity. Keep in mind what the outside influences might be, whether they're positive or negative or distracting, and make sure that the rules and expectations are fair as well, and flexible. The other thing is that there were some tips there at the bottom on that last point around things that might encourage children to become more interested in doing something. So controversy, contradiction, suspense, guessing, feedback. Those are some tips around motivating. And if you pull up the next slide, please, you'll see just a few more of my top tips. And these are to encourage effort and persistence and collaboration, and make sure that you keep an eye on what children can do in different subject areas. So they may have more motivation in one area than another. In areas of strength, for example, they may be more inclined to persist. Whereas if they have an area of weakness, they may be a little bit more reticent to do so. And if there are areas where they do require additional help and so forth to build those strengths and talents, to provide them with that, and that it's okay to ask, and being patient, because doing anything takes time. And those particular points are from an article at Creativity Post around creating a culture where it's cool to be smart. And most of my articles do have lots of different tips like this. And finally, I just want to talk about these last points, which are sort of hands-on things that kids can do to make sure that when they get involved in something, they stay involved, that they maintain that level of interest and motivation. So one is technology, which is enabling in so many ways. It can also be distracting. There are also issues, yes, but technology is just a wonderful opportunity for children to have access to places and things and opportunities that they might not otherwise have. A lot of kids require movement, which is important. You don't have to just always be sitting still. There are lots of activities and things you can do. I've just written a couple of pieces on the wonders of nature and getting out there, and
So important.
Visuals, flexibility, mutual respect with other people, allowing them to provide tips and help and so forth, and having fun. I mean, if something is a lot of fun, then kids are more inclined to do it.
Well, and that applies to the grown-ups too, right?
Absolutely.
A lot of these things, as you're going through them, I'm like, well, it's like the grown-ups too. You know, we shy away from things we're not good at, or feel that we're not good at. So there's a lot of potential for healthy modeling there, I think, especially with all of the additional time that we're all spending with our children now. ABCs. Your book, ABCs of Raising Smarter Kids, uses alliteration to help parents focus on ways to support children's success. And it does so very well, I might add. Can you share some examples that pertain to motivation specifically, since that's our topic for this talk?
Okay, so I'm just going to say them, and then we'll pop up the slide afterwards, and I'll just share. So the first A word is accountability. And children who actually know that their education is theirs to create have that accountability. They've learned an important lesson for life, and they get more from their schooling. So accountability is my first motivational A word. Activities and programming have to be properly set forth or co-created. So Activities, that would be my second. An authentic learning environment is my third A word. So this would have to do with the school culture, the administrative attitude, homeschooling opportunities, teacher professional development, the schools or the teachers' respect for individual developmental differences, homeschool connectivity. All those are part of that authentic learning environment. My fourth A word has to do with adaptability. Again, having that flexibility to roll with it that I mentioned before. And there's a quote I always like to use, and I don't even know who wrote it, but you can't stop the waves, but you can learn how to surf. So there you go.
I love that. That's great.
And then finally, advocacy, speaking up and having your needs met. So parents who advocate for their children are well positioned to do so. And of course, kids can advocate for themselves. And these are all things that I write about not only in the ABCs book, but in a lot of my work. Moving on to the letter B, I think the most important one is probably believing in your child and encouraging that child to believe in him or herself. So another quote that I like to use is one from Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie, who also starts with a B, which is the moment where you doubt whether you can fly, you cease forever being able to do it. So believing in children. Second B word is bridge, to bridge any gaps between what a child is actually learning and what he needs or wants to learn. My third B word is boundaries. So if we're going to set learning boundaries for kids, or any kind of boundaries for that matter, they have to be fair, they have to be kind, you can set them together, and understand in terms of even behavior that even smart children can have difficulty trying to reconcile their emotions, their behavior, and this is especially so at times like this when kids are feeling frustrated and sometimes bored or may have difficulty coping with the challenges and changes that are happening just endlessly. So believe, bridge, boundaries. My fourth B word is brain related. Information, neuroplasticity, the idea that the brain changes all the time, and helping children understand how the brain works, which is a really important learning opportunity for them. And my fifth word is bolster, to bolster children's confidence, to help them feel good about themselves, even in areas of weakness, to help them take pride in their efforts and perseverance and improvement. And then moving on to C very quickly, my first C word is choice, enabling kids to become more motivated because we respect their interests and learning preferences. The idea of community, which can be very supportive. And I've recently written an article for GHF, which is on my website, Gifted Homeschooling Forum. So you can take a look at that around community and why it's important and how it can be supportive. My third C word is communication, the idea of listening and chatting and sharing ideas with others. Fourth C word is coping, which is especially important during another C word, which is COVID.
Exactly.
And then the last C word is calm, to be as calm and responsive as possible, because if we focus on the positives and recognize what's central to our children's well-being and we don't get too wrought up, that can be very helpful for them and motivating as well. So if you pop up that ABC slide, Molly, just have a quick look at those points.
There we go.
Here we are. So,
and there they are, all written out for us.
So
calm is so important.
Look at those. Yeah, they can have a look at their leisure. Okay.
Excellent. All right. So our next question, productivity. What is the connection between motivation and productivity?
This is just going to be a very, very quick answer. Motivation fuels productivity. So there are certain similarities. They both involve linking ideas to experiences and information and ways of thinking. But basically, that's it. Motivation fuels productivity. So again, that's on a slide. And the slide that follows that is around different ways that parents can encourage productivity. So here it is. You've got different.
You want me to go back?
Yeah, for a sec.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. So they both involve ideas, experience, information, but motivation is the fuel. And there's a couple of quotes there that I share from my ABC's book. The first is, help children engage intelligence, creativity, and determination. And this will empower them to invest in their own active learning and give them the edge to succeed. And the other one, which is, encourage children's ideas, even the seemingly outlandish ones, so they can extend their enthusiasms. So
Wonderful.
And if you move to the next slide,
This one?
the next question I think you're going to ask me is about how to encourage that productivity. Am I right? So,
Exactly. Practical strategies. You would almost think
okay.
you had written these questions.
Yeah.
How can parents encourage children's productivity? Sort of, nuts and bolts in the home. How does that work?
I know, and yes, I knew exactly where we were going. So I'm trying to keep everything very, very organized and moving along. So the first thing has to do with putting things in perspective and helping children to learn to prioritize, to chunk things, to get ready, to be prepared, to think about their pacing, and to actually be positive, to think that they can do it, and if they can't, then to feel okay about getting help. And these are points that are outlined in Bust Your Butts. Another way to think about being practical has to do with action tips, things that kids can actually do. So helping them learn to set realistic goals, focusing. A lot of kids just have difficulty focusing, and helping them learn to do that. Effective strategies will be different from one child to another. Let them figure out what works for me, what is the most effective way for me to get things done. Again, getting the guidance if they need it, and learning to self-evaluate. So that one's, that particular list comes from Beyond Intelligence. And then common sense, making sure that children understand that there are reasons for the different rules and limitations that they may be asked to consider. That life balance piece, enough time for play and time in nature, and relaxation and reflection and exercise, and being with others. That's really important. You can't always be productive 24/7. That life balance piece is huge. Positive feedback and genuine praise. Actually, I was writing last night about an article that I'm preparing for Creativity Post, and also another one for First Time Parent Magazine, around what genuine praise looks like, and how to actually praise children effectively and meaningfully, and not just in ways that are lip service. And then helping children connect with their past efforts and successes is motivating, because they feel, if I did it before, I can do it again. What strategies did I use? And helping children to avoid time pressures. Nobody likes to be in a position where they're pushed and shoved into a time frame. We need to sort of take a breath and keep in mind the circumstances, and enable children to do what they can when they can.
Exactly. No, I think that's really important. And a lot of people, I think, thought that during this sort of downtime of COVID that we would have lots of opportunity to sort of do things, but we've all been learning to live a different way. And so it really has not resulted in the sort of free time that we had originally envisioned, or I think many of us had originally envisioned. So now on to creativity. Why does creativity matter? And what is the connection between the motivation and the creativity? Because I know you've got good stuff to say about that.
Of course. So creativity matters because it enables children to solve problems, to have fun, to get through challenge. It gives them fresh insights. There's that whole power of possibility when you create something new. It's fresh, it's innovative, it's exciting.
Yes.
Creativity has a lot to do with playfulness and spontaneity, and engaging with the world in different ways. The other thing about creativity is that it can bolster a child's self-confidence, because by coming up with something new and wonderful and creative, it's an opportunity to enhance their strengths and their talents and their interests, and it's motivating. So if you pop up slide number 9, which is the next slide in the deck.
All right, let's see. There we go. Then
Yeah.
the next one.
There.
Yay.
So this is exactly what I said, different ideas around why it matters. And again, check through creativitypost.com for all my articles on creativity. which is on my website as well, Fostering Kids Success.
Wonderful. So we hear a lot about creativity from you and from others. It seems to sort of be I won't say a new buzzword, but I think people are hearing it a little differently and a little more broadly now. So practically speaking, how can parents encourage their children's creativity?
Okay, so let's just go back for a second and talk about motivation and creativity, and then lead into that. So
Okay.
Let's pop up the next slide for a second, if you don't mind.
All righty,
Because I think
absolutely.
in order to really understand creativity, we have to understand too how it connects between motivation or with motivation. So in order for creativity to really flourish, kids have to be motivated. And in order to be motivated, then the expectations have to be reasonable. There has to be a certain knowledge base from which they're working so that they can progress. They have to be involved in certain experiences like play and exploration and reading and opportunities to communicate with others and work at tasks and activities that are well aligned with their abilities and their interests and their needs and their emotions and their preferences. And the best way to find out what a child might be able to do is to use a multi-measures approach to determine what their advanced abilities might be, their strengths, areas of weakness, and then meet whatever their needs might be as they are identified in different subject areas. And if you go to the next slide as well, please, if you don't, please be so kind. Another important way to think about motivation and creativity as being aligned is to think about the goals. Because if children are going to be creative, and if they're going to be motivated, they have to have goals in mind. There has to be some sort of an endpoint. And we want the journey to get to those goals, that process, to be engaging and fun and worthwhile and effortful. But there needs to be a goal, something to work toward. So those goals need to be aligned with children's levels of readiness in specific areas. With their interests and again with their strengths and weaknesses. Those goals should be clear, because if they're muddled, they get all mixed up and kids don't know what to do. They should be inspiring, and you want the child to be enthusiastic about what it is they're going to do. Reachable. I mean, if something is way up there in the stars, they're going to have trouble getting it, but step by step, they have to feel that there's a certain level of attainment. And they have to be realistic, not pie in the sky stuff, which of course has its merits, I guess, too, but at least something that they feel that they can do something with down the road. They can share it with others. They can use it. They can feel good about having done this, whatever it is, and realize their goals.
Absolutely. No, I think having something tangible is really helpful. Being able to show something for the effort that you have put in
Right.
is important. So, final takeaways. What key points should parents remember to pay attention to? I feel like parents have so much on them right now between work and trying to support education at home. And what you've described in these last couple of slides is really tailored education, individually tailored education. If parents were to walk away with just a couple of doable ideas to keep in mind, what would they be?
Well, I think that what I'd like to do is just think first about top strategies before I narrow it down to two, which is really, really, really tough to do, or three even. Let me just take a couple of minutes here to talk about some creative points that I want to pull together, and then motivational ones. So in terms of the creative piece, the top strategies would be to encourage children to believe in their capabilities, to want to ask questions, to be playful, because that creative piece of it feeds into their motivation. And if you show kids that learning and doing and using their imagination are worthwhile and joyful pursuits, then they will be motivated. So that's that sort of alignment between creativity and motivation, again, that's so important. Curiosity. I want to talk for a minute about curiosity, which is huge because it stimulates that inquiry, it ignites that imagination. And there's a quote, again, there's certain quotes that I just love, and one is by William Arthur Ward, and it's, "Curiosity is the wick in the candle of learning."
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it is beautiful.
It's
Curiosity.
beautiful. Yes.
We want children to learn. We want them to be motivated. We want them to be creative. And one of a huge impetus is, of course, curiosity, which will direct children to meaningful answers and further their intelligence, and also help them find the enjoyment in things that they're pursuing. And also important, I mentioned before, was reasonable expectations, both from motivation and creativity. And finally, commenting wisely, constructively, not criticizing so much, but giving forthright comments back to children, and letting them know what it is they're doing well, and how they can go to the next step in order to be the best they can possibly be. And in ABCs of Raising Smarter Kids on page 30, I say the following. I say, help kids appreciate that they can become a creator, a collaborator, a developer, an achiever, or a dreamer. In short, someone who will turn their curiosity and know-how into something exciting and gratifying. And the basis of that quote is actually from work by Scott Barry Kaufman, who writes a lot about creativity and how the mind works. So if you pop up the next slide just for a second, please, if you'd be so kind. Those points that I just mentioned are there.
Right there.
Quote that I just said, yeah. And then if you just move along to the next slide, I'm going to answer the final takeaways piece, because
Great.
These are not the end all be all. There is a whole lot more that would be worth remembering and applying when you're helping children to become more motivated. But the first has to do with keeping children safe. And this is particularly important now, that sense that their well-being is being tended to, that they are in a stimulating environment, but nevertheless a very safe one, where they know what's where to go if they need help, or what's happening. And I know there are a lot of unknowns, and we are in a time of unpredictable occurrences. I mean, it's chaos sometimes, but again, trying to ensure children, ensure their safety. The second point in terms of my final takeaways would be making sure that we provide children with the opportunities to pursue their interests, their strengths, their creativity, enabling them to feel that there's a world out there, and they can still be part of that world, and they can still connect with communities and mentors and people who can help them in various ways, and we will support them in being able to do that. Which requires us to be there, which is my next point, which is a matter of listening, but listening intently, listening not just to the words, but to the meaning, and to listening to respond and to respond in ways that are helpful. Observing, keeping an eye out for red flags if a child is having difficulty with what's happening, coping, what are their sleeping habits, what is their behavior like, how are they managing with their social interactions and so forth. So observing that, talking with them openly around what's going on. It's not an easy time for everybody. So those coping skills that we employ can be communicated openly to our children, and offer them support in different ways. And the fourth takeaway point is helping children understand the values that are so important. Learning is not just about math and science and geography. It's about integrity and teaching children about kindness and empathy and graciousness and gratitude and forgiveness and patience, and the list goes on and on. And those are the final takeaways that I think are really important, those 4 points. But I need to end with that one, because it's so important that we encourage those character attributes, those ways that will help them become better people, in a world that
Absolutely.
somehow it's gone awry. And yes, we do want to teach the academics, but we also have to teach children that they are part of a broader humanity. And if we take the time to do that, I think it will be lessons well learned. So again, I write about that as well, because I think that um, motivation and creativity and productivity can be wonderful sources of strength and solace, and encourage children to move forward even when the times are hard.
I think that's wonderful advice. I really do. The academics are certainly important, but one's humanity and respecting the humanity of another, there's no substitute for that.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So in wrapping up, you want to share some information about books, resources.
Sure.
You write so much. So you just want me to put the other slide up?
Yeah, we can put up the last slide, and I'll just give people a little bit of an overview of what each of the books is about and how they can get them, and a little bit around what possibilities are there in terms of resources that I provide in addition to these. So ABCs of Raising Smarter Kids is my most recent book. And this one, again, is all done in alliteration. But what I talk about predominantly is ways to encourage children's intelligence, encourage their well-being, and provide all kinds of different supports and encouragement. Bust Your Butts, Tips for Teens Who Procrastinate is not just for teens. It's for basically any child, I would say 9 or 10 and up. And this one is filled with lots of different strategies to help them overcome procrastination. So some of the strategies are strategies that are skill-based. Some have to do with external issues, and some have to do with personal issues or feelings and so forth that children might have around why they procrastinate. Not Now, Maybe Later, again, it's for parents to help them provide children with strategies for overcoming their procrastination. Beyond Intelligence is a book that goes across the spectrum for helping children become more productive and to be happy. And again, that was published in Canada, but is available elsewhere, of course. And the first book that I wrote, the last one was with Donna Matthews, and so was Being Smart About Gifted Education, which I know you have in stock still at Gifted Unlimited. And this is a book that is a real helpful tool for parents of gifted learners who are looking for answers around how to support their children's ultimate well-being and optimal growth. So we talk about creativity in there, we talk about testing, we talk about different programming alternatives for children, and how to provide for them in terms of their social and emotional development as well. It runs the entire gamut, and it is still a very strong resource for parents and for teachers as well, by the way. And that's the second edition that you posted up there as well. So those are available through you. I'd also like to reiterate that the resources are available online on my website, joannefoster.ca, and that there is a wealth of information available through the various titles at Gifted Unlimited as well. And that you and I have created an ebook, a free ebook for use for parents during the COVID storm. And that's called A to Z for Parents. Coping Today and Moving Forward Tomorrow, and that's accessible just by sending you an email at Gifted Unlimited, and parents can get that really fast in their e-box.
Absolutely. It's actually located in the bookshop on the Gifted Unlimited site. So you go in as if you are shopping, and hopefully you'll pick up a couple of other things, but you just click on that and it immediately downloads to you. So you don't even have to wait for a response from me. Happy to give you a response, but it can be immediate. And I think the slides will set them up the same way, just so that people can get them as soon as they want them.
Okay, one other thing I would like to say is because this is a virtual presentation or interview, I don't have that interaction. I'm looking at a screen, and it's very different from what I'm used to when I do conference presentations. So what I would like to do is to be sure to extend to people who are seeing this and who have registered for this conference to feel free to reach out to me, to go to my website, connect with me via the contact page. If you have any questions around anything I've said here, I'm a lifelong learner, so if you have anything that you want to share with me, I'm happy to learn and interact with you and collaborate. I'm always interested in feedback and comments, and if people would like to reach out and connect with me, then I try and respond as quickly as I can. And certainly, if you do go to my resources or you do read one of the books, get back in touch with me and let me know what your thoughts are, because I'm always writing and I'm always happy to share resources and ideas with people.
Joanne, you are a prolific author. You have lots of words of wisdom. You're one of the most accessible authors I think I've ever encountered. I mean, you enjoy the back and forth, and
I do.
some are more like that than others, but you definitely are. So I'm just going to. We really didn't talk about talking about this, but you're also available to offer professional development either virtually or otherwise once we're allowed to travel again. Should a school or a parent group or whatever want to reach out to you, arrangements can be made.
Absolutely. I do sessions online, but I also am happy to, well, not right now, but go places and meet people.
We're so happy when we can do that.
Eventually, we'll get back to that point, and it'll be wonderful to get to that point. But yes, by all means, joannefoster.ca, connect, and I'm here. I'm happy to help, and I'm always writing, and I'm always looking to respond to the kinds of concerns that parents send me, and I'm here.
Thank you so much. I'm sure our New Mexico audience is going to have a lot of good information to take back home. And another thing, they'll be able to rewatch this. So maybe they take a few things and come back and revisit it. So,
right, and have the slides too, so that will sort of refresh their memory with some of the points, which is why I actually did that, so that would be accessible for people.
exactly. Thank you so much for your time today. I